The kettle began to sing just as I slipped the robe over my shoulders. It was late, one of those dusky evenings in late September when the sun retreats behind the hills without fanfare. The windows of my Vermont cottage fogged slightly from the temperature difference. I had just stepped out of the shower, towel-dried my thinning silver hair, and stood for a moment, still damp and barefoot on the cold wooden floor, staring at the photo on the mantel. William. Always William. He'd been gone 11 years now. Cancer doesn't care how many years you've loved someone or how many promises you whispered at midnight. Just takes, quietly, completely. And then the silence is all that remains. That night, like most others, I wasn't expecting company. My daughter had called to say she wouldn't make it for the weekend after all. Something about a client deadline. I didn't mind, really. I'd become accustomed to plans falling through. The robe I wore was silk, pale cream with delicate floral embroidery. William had given it to me on our 32nd anniversary. I'd stopped wearing it for a long time after he died. It felt sacred somehow, too intimate to be wrapped around a woman alone. But on that evening I wore it again. I don't know why. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I missed feeling beautiful. I moved to the kitchen, tying the robe at my waist as the kettle whistled louder. That's when I heard the knock. First I froze. It was almost 8:30, and no one came by unannounced anymore. When I opened the door slightly, a young man stood there, maybe in his early 30s. Soft smile, flannel shirt, and arms full of groceries. Delivery for Lorraine. He looked at me, then quickly looked away, as if catching himself staring too long. I glanced down and realized the robe had parted slightly at the neckline. I pulled it tighter. "Oh, I didn't order anything," I stammered. "Your daughter must have," he said, still averting his eyes. "She said you might be needing a few things: eggs, soup, bread, tea." He held up the bag, and I nodded slowly, too startled to protest. I stepped aside. "I'll leave them on the counter then," he offered, stepping inside. I noticed he didn't look directly at me the entire time. When he left, I stood in the kitchen alone again, holding a box of chamomile tea in one hand, the faint scent of lavender still rising from my skin. I felt heat rise in my chest. Embarrassment, maybe, but something else too. A flutter I hadn't felt in years. Not desire. Not exactly. But awareness. I sat down with my tea, robe still wrapped around me, and watched the dusk roll in over the hills. The following morning, I received a text from my daughter. "Did the groceries get there okay?" He's the new neighbor's son, helping me out. New neighbor. I hadn't met anyone new in over a year. I felt silly for caring how I looked, but still. I brushed my hair that morning, added a touch of rose to my cheeks. Not for him. For me. That's what I told myself. Days passed and I started walking again. Just down the lane. Sometimes I'd pass their house and hear music playing. Guitar. Sometimes laughter. One afternoon I left a small tin of cookies on their porch. No note. No explanation. Just a gesture. A week later, a thank you card appeared in my mailbox. "Your kindness was felt," it read. That was all. That evening I sat by the window, wearing my usual sweater and long skirt. No silk. No surprises. Just me, looking out at a world that had begun, ever so slightly, to stir again. And that's when it happened. I saw him. The young man. He was standing in the driveway, waving. He had seen me in the window. I waved back without thinking, the kind of automatic gesture that used to be instinctive before the world went quiet. The next morning there was a knock again. This time it was him, holding a small potted plant. "It's lavender," he said. Figured it might match the tea. I smiled, letting the door swing open a little wider than I had last time. This time I wasn't wearing silk. I was wearing a sweater, thick and warm. But I felt no less beautiful. We spoke for a few minutes. He told me about his music, his plans to travel. I told him about the paintings I hadn't touched since William died. He encouraged me genuinely. Not in that dismissive, polite way people often use with older women, but with real interest. After he left, I went upstairs and opened the drawer. My brushes were still there, still clean, still waiting. That night I began again, painting. Just a few strokes at first, and then more. The woman I painted wasn't young. Her shoulders were soft, not firm. Her hands bore wrinkles. But her eyes, they carried light. Weeks passed. We didn't see each other often, but sometimes a wave from the mailbox or a note left on the porch made its way into my day. I even sent my daughter a photo of the painting. She cried. Said she hadn't seen that version of me in a long time. It's funny. One unexpected moment, one knock at the door, can open something long sealed. And maybe it wasn't about being seen by him. Maybe it was about finally seeing myself again.